And welcome everybody to the Southport Whisky Festival. It's the last session of the last 3 days. Jesus. We finished the summer festival with Bimber, and we're going to finish the winter festival with Bimber. We have the infamous Matt McKay going to take us through a rather delicious tasting set. How are you, Matt?
I'm good, mate. How are you doing? Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Nice to see you.
Merry Christmas, Matt.
Pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure. How's it been? All going well?
It's gone really well. It's gone really well. And just to set the scene, we got all the tasting sets and we put them into a charity raffle. So we raised just over £1,000 for the Southport Baby Bank with the proceeds, and everybody that's on the tasting tonight was a winner. So you might not have won the raffle just before, but at least you're here. And the Southport Baby Bank were absolutely delighted to help out some struggling families over Christmas. So it was good all around. Thank you very much for everybody for taking part in that one. And everybody should have one of these. And if you open it up, it's beautifully presented. I have to say, Matt, you guys are getting better all the time at sending samples out.
Thanks, mate. Yeah. We're doing quite a lot of these, so we're just going to run out of glassware. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. There's a real shortage of it. We when I decided to do the festival, I then thought, shit, I better get some minis in little glass bottles, and my usual supplier was out of them. So I had to run around, and then I eventually found these dark ones. So we went from clear to dark, which I guess is summer to winter. There's maybe a bit of stuff going on there. What do you think?
Well, I mean, a lot of glass is going to be used up for all this vaccine. So, I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, right at the beginning of lockdown 1, you know, what we're on to now, lockdown 28 or whatever, you know, just trying to find minis in bulk is really, really difficult. I mean, you remember we used to have the 50 ml ones. I've still got over here. Still got a few of those, but we haven't seen hide nor hair of those since March. So yeah, get what you can.
So you've
some of those vaccine tubes.
These are 30 mil. They look like they've got 25s in them, the way.
Those are 30 mil. Yeah.
Very good.
Is that glass, Victor, or is that plastic? Is that PET?
It's definitely glass.
Definitely glass.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because we've seen a real shortage of the glass ones as well.
Yeah.
I mean, massive online whiskey tastings going on. I blame you lot.
I bought 7,500 of these.
Is that all?
That's all.
Wow. So it's your fault.
That is my fault. Anyway, let's go on to some Bimber whiskey, because I've been looking forward to this since we announced it. You've got 5 whiskies here. Where do you want to start?
Okay, right. Okay, guys, lovely to see you. Let's get the whiskey flowing straight away whilst I rabble on. We'll be starting with Ex-Bourbon small batch number 2, please. So, can I share my screen, Victor?
I shall make you host, if you wish.
Oh, I'm honoured.
Make host. There you go.
Okay.
Matt, you're very honoured that you've been made host at the end of the session, I'm sure. Victor's done an incredible job as host for the last lot, and now you jump in and take all the plaudits.
Oh, no. He's been on here all day. He's the expert. Have you had a hat change every session, Victor?
I've been through a few. I haven't actually worn my full array of hats. I probably need to do a longer festival to do that. But if I did that, then I'd probably be getting divorced.
She's okay with the 700 empty bottles being stored in the house then?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Right, let's make a start, guys. I'm Matt McKay. I'm Director of Marketing and Communications for Bimber Distillery. A lot of you know me, and it's lovely to see you. Here I am again, closing out the festival. So there you go. It's 157 days later, literally, since the last time I was here. There I am, looking pretty much the same, probably a bit fatter after non-stop turkey. I mean, I'm surprised I haven't broken out in hives. A lot has happened in 157 days. In October, there was a Qantas flight. It sold out in 10 minutes. It flew for 7 hours going absolutely nowhere. People just wanted to get on an aeroplane and land back where they started. In November, there was a reverse waterfall in Australia. And if you've not seen the video of the winds blowing the waterfall upwards, you should definitely watch it. It's amazing. And Bimber has put out over 30 bottles of whiskey, which in 157 days is quite a lot. We've been busy. So since I last spoke to you, we've been open and we've been closed again. And it's really a shame that we haven't been able to do tours, but as a lot of you have probably got bored to death of me by now, we've been online quite a lot. But it's somewhat of a good thing, because doing all of that amount of whiskey, which no doubt we'll talk about, particularly when we get onto the country expression, the distillery has looked pretty much like an Amazon depot, and it still does a bit, really. There's boxes everywhere. We have been busy bees. We've also done a couple of collabs on beer, which a lot of you know is my other love, and the reason why I'm getting fatter and fatter. It's not actually the turkey, it's the ale. And those barrels have now come back to the distillery, and there'll be some Imperial Stout whiskey coming up next year. But I'll spend a little bit of the latter part of our session talking and showing you a few things of what we got planned for 2021. In many ways, the selection that we've got here kind of takes you guys through from the last festival, 157 days later, through to where we were last month, onto the latest thing, which is your Southport whiskey bottling that we're excited to try with you. And then a port cask, which we've tried some port casks with you guys before, but this one we're going to release. So you guys are effectively the first people to actually try something that we're now going to say, yep, port casks are coming, and they're coming next year. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Just to start off, for those who don't know me and haven't been subjected to, some people see me like 4 times a week, and I don't know why you keep coming back. I think you're either mad or stalking me. I will give you a very quick 5-minute introduction to who we are and what we're doing. So we're Bimber. We're a distillery based in North Acton, so 10 minutes west of London. We are making English whiskey really slowly. Everything that we do, we take our time with. We have only been bottling for the past year, so our whiskey is now 4 years old. Next May, it'll be 5 years old. So still a youngster, but not the youngest by any stretch. Next year, you're going to see quite a few English whiskies releasing their first expression. So we won't be the new kid on the block for too much longer. The name Bimber comes from Polish. It translates as moonshine, and it reflects a really important part of what we do. And that's our heritage. That's the fact that we are generational moonshiners. Our master distiller is father and grandfather, hiding out away from the taxman, making spirit. And we've actually adopted those same skills with what we're making, the sense of smell, touch, and taste. So you won't find any automation in the distillery. The only computer you'll find is in the office, and that's it. I will show you, I can't remember if I showed you guys this time, but here we are, planet Earth. Show you exactly where we are and what we're doing using a little quick capture from Google Earth. So the first place that Bimber starts is over in Fordham and Allen, which is our farm. It's based in Basingstoke, and they grow all of our two-row Concerto and Laureate, which provides all of our barley needs from their field right there. The reason why we select those strains is simply for flavor, but also for extractability, i.e. how much starch can we get out to then convert into the sugars to make the beer for what we want. I cannot imagine that we're going to move from there. And a lot of people don't know that most of the barley used in Scotland comes from England. So we're quite rich in the sources of it. From there, we move further west and we go to Warminster Maltings. This is England's oldest maltster. Here's Darius on, this is the Bimber floor. We have a whole floor dedicated to malting our barley. And this is my boss discovering that it's really bloody hard work to floor malt a whole floor of it. And you're doing that just to stop it all from matting. So when it's moist, you don't want it all rooting together. You want it germinating evenly. So far our story is from England, but it's very much been over in the West. Shortly, we will fly back somewhere a little bit more industrial. So from over, I guess you're heading out towards Bristol Way at this point. Yep, here we go. We're going to move all the way back over into North Acton. There's Bimber. Yeah, it's an industrial estate. It's not the sort of place you'd expect to find a distillery. It's not the sort of place that you would walk by happenstancely. If you're coming to visit us, then you have definitely made an effort to be there, and we thank you very much for that. But once you get inside the distillery, it's a lot more exciting than North Acton Industrial Estate. Everything other than that barley that we've just seen take its journey from the field to the maltster, everything else is done under this one roof. So when it arrives, obviously all of the standard distillery processes, mashing, fermenting, and distilling, but then we're also doing all of the bottling, the labeling, and the distribution, which is quite a problem when you've got 30 releases in the space of 6 weeks. But we'll talk about that later.
Matt, just a second. I think there's somebody in the waiting room. As you're the host, you need to just watch, let some folk in.
Yeah, no problems at all.
Thank you.
There we go. Sorry, didn't see that. Right, they're in. One of the most famous sites you'll probably see at Bimber are our washbacks, and we made those themselves. And I've had a lot of people asking us about how we made those. And so one of the things we've done in lockdown 28 is we've made a video for you so we can show you how we made these. So let's see if this works. Maybe. Here we go. So I really like that video because I think it sums up quite a lot about what we're about. We're not just about the wood, but we are about that's the craft side, taking your time, making things ourselves. This is Darius, the owner, founder, and master distiller. This is Dharma. This is his company just up the road. This is what he does when he's not running Bimber. He makes things out of wood. And so we're really, really fortunate to have this facility and these.
Have we lost you, Matt? Is everyone else still there?
I'm still here. I think we might have lost him for a second. Matt, can you hear us?
Oh, am I back? Hello.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. Okie dokie. I think that's the wife on the internet. Yes, so I'll still set up.
Just talking about Dharma.
Sorry, chaps. Yes, so Dharma is just up the road from the distillery. And we're really lucky to have the facilities of those skilled tradespeople there help.
It's obviously the sticking point.
Yeah, I'm going to dump out of this presentation and just talk to you now. Let's stop it. Stop it.
Oh, perfect. We can see your emails. This is amazing.
We've had people from literally all around the world on the festival. We had Catacton Creek dialing in from Virginia this morning, well, early this afternoon. It was 9 a.m. at their place. We've had people from Denmark, Germany. I think we've had a Norwegian on. And as soon as you go to London,
it all kicks off. I'll tell you what, though, Bimber is one of the coolest distilleries I've ever been to. I remember walking down the first time I went there. It looks like you're going to an MOT garage.
it does actually. It's kind of in this industrial estate, and you think, am I in the wrong place here?
Yeah. And then you go in, there's a little bar in front of you. Behind you there is a display case. They always keep a few bottles of every barreling they do. So in there at the bottom of is the Southport Whiskey Club first bottling, which is really, really cool. I remember sending you a photo, a month ago?
Yeah.
Where am I?
Exactly where you were.
Right, sorry about that, chaps. Trying to be too clever with Christmas internet, and clearly it wants me to just talk to you using my face rather than showing you pretty pictures. So that's what you got, my bad. Yes, so trying to pick up where the technology dropped off. Yeah, we're really fortunate to have the skills of effectively an in-house coopering team making not just washbacks for us, repairing all the stills. They don't just run themselves. There's quite a lot of work that needs to be done. And then looking after our barrels. And we've got that just 200 yards up the road. So that's fantastic. And is very much part of our ethos in terms of wanting to be hand involved in everything, not wanting to, necessarily outsource it, but wanting to be involved in every single part of the process. It's very much a Bimber ethos so that we can control that end product. Moving on, so the stills, just to summarize, because I can't show you the photo, they are gas-fired, they're direct-fired. That is a little bit unusual. You won't see that too many places. I've seen it in a few places where things went wrong and they are not gas-fired anymore. Touch wood, ours are still gas-fired. We haven't had any problems with it. It's a very particular type of distillation that it's not as fierce as it looks. It's a very powerful boil, but it's a slow boil. So we end up with a distillation that is 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours. So quite a slow thing. Similar to our fermentation, that's also 7 days. So everything you'll find at Bimber is pretty slow. The net result being is that we're now filling roughly 1 barrel a day. That's roughly our capacity at the moment. And that's partly why you'll find that when you go to our website, there ain't a lot there a lot of the times. The reason is because you guys keep buying it all, which we thank you for. Right, moving on to the whiskey.
Matt, can I jump you back a tiny bit? Because
yeah.
When I was at Bimber a month ago, I was really intrigued with the water and the water tank up above us.
Yep.
And how the water comes in and then moves into that next vessel before you put it into those beautiful tiny stills. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So there's a lot of romance around water. You go to Scotland and visit a distillery and they'll tell you all about how their water supplies are, directly from the loch. They're from this beautiful waterfall. And it's only partly true because water has to be treated before it's allowed into the sort of process part. It needs to be demineralized. And if you're using it as potable water, i.e. something you're going to drink, then it has to meet standards. Let's see if those standards change. Interesting Brexit point. Our water comes from the Thames, not directly. We don't pipe it out the river, but it comes from Thames water. We're very open about this fact because we do not believe that once you've treated water to the sufficient level that you need to distill it, to make it possible, that it really makes a fundamental difference to the whiskey. So it comes in, as you'd expect for a sort of industrial unit, through a tap, literally through a tap. It then goes into a demineralization chemical testing station, which makes sure that water is identical. It's not completely inert. There is some mineral aspect to it, and that actually we find quite good for fermentation, but it's all consistent. And we want to make sure that it always remains the same. That's the important thing when you're looking at fermentation. despite running sort of open top fermenters using wild yeast, we don't want to let all of the variables run riot. And so we want to at least make sure that the water not only is consistent, but it's, you know, it's where we want it to be. It's clean, it's precise. We are so confident about that, and the fact that, you know, Thames water can make as good a whiskey as anything else. If you visit our blog, there's a post I wrote called "The Water Tastes Like It Oughta," and I link through to our Thames water report. So you're absolutely free to look at our Thames water report whenever you guys like. Complete transparency on that. Once it goes through the demineralization and testing station, it then goes into a storage tank held above the rafters, effectively so that when we want to charge something, we are, you know, we're not just running from the tap and waiting for something to fill. You know, it's effectively a charge unit. So you fill that up, you take the charge out of that unit, and then you recharge that tank. So it's just a little bit of efficiency there. But yeah, you'd almost see it like you went in a loft and you've got your cold water tank up there. It's pretty much like that, except much more massive in the rafters of Bimber.
Thank you.
No problems. Guys,
It's incredible how open you guys were when I came to the distillery, and it was a public tour, and you guys were so incredibly open about all of that. I thought it was something interesting to press on. So thank you.
Oh, no, you're welcome, George. Pretty much, if you can see it, as long as it's not hot, you can touch it. As long as it's not blue, you can drink it, and you can certainly ask about anything you like. The only thing we try to keep secret is, you know, what releases we're doing, and we always like to do teasers. I've certainly got some teasers later for you this evening about what we got coming up. But yeah, when you come to the distillery, we don't think there's anything that's necessarily magic, and we're very happy to describe how we're doing it our way. There's nothing black magic about it. It's all to be discussed and enjoyed and yeah, chatted about. So on that note, please do ask any questions, either by jumping in or on the text chat. I've now got that open as I've not got pictures to distract me, and I will answer anything and everything you like, other than what's the world's biggest leaf, because I've forgotten, and someone did ask me that once, so I looked it up. The first whiskey that we're drinking is Ex-Bourbon Small Batch number 2. Effectively, at the moment, and I might talk about what's coming up next year, we're doing 3 different bottling types, kinda. We're doing small batch, which effectively are vattings of casks, which may or may not be finished. And they're roughly sort of 900 bottles up to the largest that we did was our Richard oak casks, and that was 5,000 bottles. We're then doing a range of single casks, picking and choosing from the casks that we have, reflecting either the things that we find fascinating and interesting, or are evocative of what we think our spirit is. So single cask, one-off, has its own unique qualities. And then I guess the third thing we're doing is Bimber Club bottlings. And they're never going to be single cask, but our membership club will always try and do something a bit different for them. So this year's club bottling was our first ever PX finish as a sort of large vatted thing. It seems to have gone down quite well, to the point where we'll probably do some other PX finishing things similar to it, but for outside of the club. And there'll be more next year, but I might touch on that in a bit. Owen's asking about a larger still on, yes, I mentioned that in our Christmas email. Hold that for till the very end, because I do have photos I want to show. So this release came out in October. I said 157 days later since I last spoke to Southport. Actually, there was quite a lot of time in between when we were preparing. COVID really put us back. There is no reason why we would have had 30 releases in 6 weeks if it wasn't for COVID. It just pushed the whole year back, mainly waiting for things, waiting for glass, as I sort of was musing about with Victor. There's not enough glass out there, even for the big bottles, waiting for labels. So everything just got condensed. We released exactly what we wanted to release this year. It just ended up coming in 3 months rather than 10 months. Crazy. This release came out in October and was accompanied by the second whiskey that we're going to try shortly. This was a larger batch of our Ex-Bourbon, our second small batch product. So it's 2,950 bottles, it says here. at 52.2%. We select the casks for these smaller batches based on their profile, but not to try to make them taste the same as the last batch. We're deliberately not trying to do that. We want it to be different. We want people to know what an ex-bourbon Bimber is going to taste like, but equally to be excited to try another one, to recognize that we're not just going to, look to try to put something together that tastes exactly the same as the first one. We could. We've certainly got enough ex-bourbon casks to do that, but that's not what we want to do. We do want to show off different aspects of it, and we want to keep some uniqueness to all these releases. When you'll start to see consistency is when we start talking about a core range, and we're not there yet. We're just haven't got the depth of stock to support that. That's when we're going to start to look at going, this one tastes like that one, tastes like that one. But at the moment, we're not there. So the small batch releases, they're larger. Hopefully they sit on the website. I think this one sat on the website for about 3 days, which is not bad for us. I think if you go online, you might still find it somewhere in a few other retailers. The same can't be said of the Oloroso small batch, which I will move on to now. This one is pretty popular, which is why we've made 3 of them. The first release was for Europe. We've desperately been trying to recognize that there's a lot of people liking Bimber who aren't in England. They're all over the world, and we love that. And so we're really trying to do bottlings where we can for other countries. And so it makes me really sad when I see those bottlings all ending back up in the UK. It's painful. But the first batch of Oloroso #1 was made for European retail. The second and the third that you're trying here was made for general release. So anyone who was on our website could buy it. I think these have got better and better as we've been effectively playing around with how we use those Oloroso casks for finishing. It's all a learning process for us. We are still a young distillery. None of us come from, a background of 30 years working for the world's largest distilleries. The experience and skills we've got come from that moonshining, that Bimber, as it were, and learning then what our spirit can do. So having a play with it ourselves. So for me, I really rather like this Oloroso finish. And I think it is quite different to the other 2 and shows that progression, not just with the spirit, which gets older. We're not keeping everything at 3 years effectively. It was 3 years, then it was 3.5. Next year, you're going to see some small batches. There'll be 4 and a bit. And that's the intention, that effectively, when you buy, I don't know if we still keep doing it, but say Oloroso batch 6, that's going to be a 5.5-year-old whiskey. It will age with us. That is the intention, although not stated.
And will you blend those barrels to try and get a house style, or will you continue to move forward? Have you found your house style yet?
It's a good question. We've certainly talked about finding our house style. I'm going to say no. I do think that our casks work really, our spirit works really, really well with ex-bourbon. But equally, that's kind of what we've been doing. We know that. Is that a house style? Yes, I guess. Is that what you're talking about in terms of a sort of core proposition? I don't think it is. And I think we've still got some experimentation ourselves to do. We've still got to get to the point where we've got enough casks to do that experimentation. So it's all very well going. You know what, guys? We've found that 70% ex-bourbon, 20% sherry, and 10% second fill red wine, that's amazing. And then you look at the inventory and go, well, yeah, but we haven't got the casks to actually support that type of blend. So, it's this combination of what tastes good and feels Bimber. And we know what feels Bimber, and you guys will know what feels Bimber because you'll tell us. But equally then doing that to a point where we've still got the casks in the inventory to be able to make it. And that's a balancing act. And I don't know when that's going to be. I don't think we've got it yet, but there's certainly been a few glasses when I have been able to get in, which has been not a lot this year, very occasionally, that have been sort of passed in front of me and gone, try that. And I say, what is it? And they'll say, try it first. There you go. And so a few interesting things there. Would we consider master classes? What do you mean, Jimmy? What's a masterclass? Is that basically something not with me? Any larger batches out? What am I going to say to that? I'm going to say yes, but it's not what you think, and we'll leave that one there. Peated cask, yeah, thumbs up. That's definitely one of my favorite ones. We are getting to the point where our actual peated spirit, so not peated by the sense that it's been left in a cask that had the peat, but actual peated barley. That I think that should be ready notionally of age by the end of the year. So certainly, I think if we're able to open up, bloody hope so by the end of the year. Jesus, going mad. By the end of the year, we should definitely have some of that to try and it's of age. But it's a really interesting thing, the difference between, the peat influence you get from a peated cask, which is obviously lower than peated barley, but in barrel, it's a very peculiar thing in that for the first 6 months, the peat levels were enormous. And then they sort of dipped off. And then after sort of 18 months, they came back with a vengeance. And I just wasn't expecting that. I was expecting something a little bit more linear, but it's not. It's a little bit up and down. So it remains an interesting prospect. The end of the year is tomorrow. Yes, yes, end of next year. I don't know what day of the week it is, Brian. Spend my whole life on here. Luke said there are some Mizunara casks that's being tried out. That is still down the road. I'm nervous about that one, just because I know that they are prone to leakage and they are delicate things. But Darius is very keen, and that is an ongoing project to see what happens. Don't expect 3,000 bottles of that. I think it will probably be a cask or two at most. But yeah, there is certainly some Mizunara that we are planned. You're all picking up on my lack of dates. There you go. Whole year.
You must have quite a few peated whiskey barrels from distilleries beginning with L left over in the distillery, just waiting. When your peated new make goes into barrel, and I assume it's already in there now, what will you do with the whiskey that is in peated casks? Will you blend that into your typical bimbers and blend it away? What will you do with it?
Sorry, George. So you mean the?
So say you've got
go on, the cask left over from a peated run or the ex-peated casks?
So your ex-peated casks that you've got resting now.
Yep.
Now you also have your own peated new make in casks.
Yep.
What do you do with the whiskey that's in ex-peated casks now? Are you still going to release ex-peated cask whiskies, if you see what I mean, or are you going to blend it?
I see what you mean. I think you'll see both, in the sense that the amount of the actual peated spirit that we got is very limited, even by our standards. So, you're not going to see quite a lot of actual peated Bimber. There's only going to be some of it. So you will probably see us continuing with peated cask, batch 2, batch 3. They're also different. Different things for different people. But we also need to look at the casks that begin with L, quite a lot of which then moved to a distillery that began with A and have then moved to Bimber, right? So that's a third fill. So how many times are we going to fill those again? Not many, let's put it that way. So the broad answer to your question is, are we going to keep using those casks? Probably not, because they're going to be a bit duff shortly. Are you still going to see Bimber peated cask and Bimber peated whiskey? Yes, you'll see both, I imagine, because they are different things, and they reflect the fact that people do want peat, particularly me. It's my favorite style of whiskey, and we don't have enough of it. But by using casks in that way, we can get that peat influence to marry quite nicely to the spirit at a slightly larger volume than we're doing.
It'll be really interesting to taste them neck and neck, next to each other. Really,
they are. For me, they are night and day. Night and day. The peated cask is particularly on the nose. There's not a lot of smoke at all. It's hardly discernible. Front of the palate, a little bit of smoke. It's all in the back palate for me. Just a bang. Whereas the actual peated barley run is not the opposite. It's just full on. You know, it's sort of 40, 45 ppm. So it's reasonably ferocious. It doesn't hide itself like the peated cask. Yeah, totally with you, Brian. Peated port cask. Let's see. We're going to be trying a port cask later. There will be some port casks releases. And once you've got an empty port cask, you might as well fill it with something nice. So I will try and persuade the man, because peated port, double thumbs. Are there any differences between batch 2 and 3 aside from the age? Different casks in the sense of they are Oloroso, but every cask has its uniqueness. They're not necessarily from the exact same year and supplier. The main difference is the age. The finishing time is pretty much identical. So I would say the main difference that you're tasting is the maturity of the spirit, for sure. Right, what have I got on my sheet? So, yeah, Oloroso cask was only 920 bottles. It sold out in, I think, 3 minutes, which is a little bit painful because we want things to last a bit longer than 3 minutes, but that's what happened. But we'll do more, effectively. We have a few sherry casks, and then effectively, once we put out that sherry cask, that cask is then available to reuse for a sherry finish. So we'll keep on doing them. Yeah, 3 minutes, Jesus. Fee is asking when the rum casks are going to be available. That is going to be at least 3 years, I'm going to say, Fee. We only laid those down in the summer. So those have got a very, very long time to go. But no doubt, if you came to the distillery in, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, you could probably persuade us to take a bung out and have a little early sample. But in terms of rum Bimber, yeah, you've got at least 3 years, in my opinion. Well, you've got 2.5 before it's even legal. So I think at least 3 before we start getting those out there. So those are a little bit longer term. Effectively, they were just racked at the front of a distillery, so everyone took photos of them and got well excited, but they're pretty new. Right, moving on. Next is USA Country Edition Virgin Cask 95. So we're taking a step up in strength now to cask strength, and the remainder of today's whiskies are all cask strength for you. The previous 2 were reduced using potable water. We do believe that when you are mixing and blending different casks with different characteristics and different virtues about them, that reducing the level of the ABV down to a point where they can all shine harmoniously is nothing but a good thing. And some people disagree and just believe all whiskey should be cask strength. But different opinion. That said, everything else that you're having, the next 3 drams, are all cask strength, full on, undiluted. The only filtering that we employ on any of our whiskies is a barrier filter. We don't do any other filtering. It's just a barrier. Do you reduce with the same water that you distill with? No. There are different specifications for processed water compared to potable water. And for something you're putting in your body, believe me, it's got to meet some very high standards for obvious reasons. So no, it is not the exact same water. So the Country Collection. The Country Collection was a series of 20 single casks for, I think it's 12, I don't even know anymore, it's so many, 12 different countries, 9 to 12 different countries. Not all of them has been released. And you're drinking one of them that has notionally been released but hasn't been shipped yet. So you are, I believe, the first people on the planet outside of a distillery trying this one, because this one is going to the US, but it hasn't got there yet. So lucky you guys. The Country Collection was kind of the moment when a lot of people said, you know, maybe I don't need to have every single Bimber going. And that's a good thing, because trying to collect every single bottle from a distillery is, in my opinion, folly, because you just end up getting completely obsessed by it and nothing good comes of it. Believe me, I haven't.
I don't know, Matt. I mean, I've got a substantial collection of Bladnoch, and you know, it fills that shelf, and there's more downstairs, and it's actually
I can only say sorry for you, mate.
it's great fun finding them. I found an old malt cask, 21-year-old Bladnoch, a couple of weeks ago, and it's got Douglas Lang on it, and it's just, you know.
Well, what I would say, Victor, Bladnoch has been around for a little while, and you're not amongst 1,000 other people chasing brand new releases. You're going out and searching in auction houses and finding little gems, and I think that's a little bit different than jumping on to try and grab every single little thing you can get from a new release.
Precisely.
Anyway, I just wanted to make the point that I would love
that you've got a lot of Bladnoch, right? The older stuff, maybe.
He's got a lot of hats as well.
Okay, all the hats, every single hat. Got to have all the hats. No, I mean, it's collecting whiskey is equally as valid, as drinking whiskey. If that's what you enjoy, that's what you enjoy. But yeah, people who come on and they're like, right, there's a new distillery, I have to have every single release. You're just going to struggle. You're really struggling. It's not because of anything else. It's because you end up with all distilleries putting out private casks. You know, people have come in and said, yeah, we'll support your distillery. We'll give you some money and we'll buy a cask and wait for it. And then they bottle up their cask. And then someone says, well, why can't I have that? It's always not your cask, it's someone else's. And so to have the only person who will ever have one of all is Darius, because he owns it. And I think that's fair enough. And yeah, I think the country collection was the moment when people realized that trying to get every single bottle was going to be very, very difficult. That doesn't mean that I haven't seen some people giving it a bloody good go, and I really have. For those of you who don't know the Bimber Appreciation Society, it's either a place that you really want to join on Facebook, or it's not. But boy, are those people keen, and it's lovely to see them. And yeah, some of them they've done pretty well with it. These ones, as I said, they're not yet released. They're being distributed by Glass Revolution Import. And for those who know him, that is Raj Sabelwal's company. He's our US distributor. I've seen people selling them already, which is crazy because they haven't got them yet. Who knows? But yeah, a little bit of an interesting one that you're not going to see at any of our festival appearances for you here. So a virgin cask at cask strength.
Matt, you said that you've released 30 whiskies in 6 weeks, and that a whiskey recently sold out in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Are you worried as a new distillery that there is a potential of flooding the market or releasing too many whiskies or expressions?
Sure. Give me 1 second, George. I'm just going to deal with a couple of the comments. Richard, it's virgin cask number 95. Oh, no, everyone else has already dived in. There we go. Yes and no, in the sense that we're not that fussed with the secondary market. We do not price or create our releases based around the hype on the secondary market. So in the sense that if someone said, well, look, you've released these whiskies, ergo the price of whiskey A has diminished because of that, that's okay, that's fine, because we're here to make whiskey. We're here to release it. We're here for people to drink it as much as possible. Is there a point where, you're just putting out so much that people are like, hold on a minute, I've just opened up my email and here's another one? Yeah, there's a point. Do I think that potentially we got close to that this year? Yeah, we did, frankly. A lot of whiskey, 30 different releases, although 20 were around the world in 6 weeks is crazy. But as I said, effectively, the plan had already been made. The bottlings the labels had already been done. It's just that they all got pushed back to the end of the year. But do I think that's a lot all at once? Yes, I do. Do I really care about, what that does to the secondary market because someone says there's a lot more? No, I don't, to be honest. If people are still interested in what we're doing, if they want to taste what we're doing, happy with that. That's all I can say. And the fact that you're all here, you know, dramming with me 30th of December, yeah, really happy with that.
Fair answer. Thank you, Matt.
Yes, you're welcome. No, Garster makes an interesting point. Selfridges on the secondary market. Yeah, not necessarily our finest hour. It's a nice whiskey. It was my least favorite. Everyone knows it's my least favorite week of the year. Still here, still fighting. Been a lot better since. And yeah, a lot of those went to auction. There was just a mad dash, and that does make us sad, frankly. You know, there is part of you that when you see hype takes different forms, right? All sorts of different forms. And hype, when you see bottles that you've made and people fighting over them on the secondary market, that is hype. And part of you, being honest, part of you goes, wow, we've done all right here. But the other part, the bigger part, the part that said we've spent the time, you know, years creating this, knowing that it's never going to be opened and it's commodified, that's really sad. So, you know, to see the, you know, the Selfridges being fought over and flipped like that was really sad. That said, I have seen an awful lot of them open subsequently, and that really pleases me. So, you know, even if initially it was a bit of a bum fight and yeah, not necessarily the smoothest of releases, fortunately not repeated since. It's really pleasing to see a lot of them open now. I love seeing photos on Facebook of people opening their bottles. It makes me very happy. Was your most favorite week when Club dumped Kev? I'm not going to get personal about it, but let's just say he messaged me. We had a little chat. I'm going to leave it at that. No, bizarre, just bizarre. You always get some very strange people in all walks of life. Will we do anything with Selfridges again? Don't know. Would we do anything similar? No. Would we do anything? I don't know. Definitely not my decision. Don't know. Right. So this release is being shipped. It should hit the US, I think, early next year now, all being well. It'll take a little bit of time to get there. So early next year. And then will be distributed around a range of US liquor stores. The distributor's based in Pennsylvania, but he's well connected. So I suspect you'll see this, a limited amount of it countrywide. There are 3 releases for the US. So this is one of them, Virgin Cask 95, 58.6, 253 bottles. So that's kind of roughly what you're going to get out of one cask of Bimber, assuming it's not a sherry butt. You're going to get around about 250 bottles to play with. I quite like this one. So the weird thing is when it comes to virgin casks is if you said to me before I worked for Bimber, do you like virgin casks, Matt? I would have said, no, I don't. I think it's heavy-handed and it just doesn't work. And all it gives is an abundance of wood that masks the spirit. And I just eat my own words because I think this is really tasty and it isn't that at all. So it can be done, in my opinion. Any other country additions for 2021? I'm going to say yes to that, but I'm going to caveat it heavily and say you are not going to see a swathe of different colored tubes. So there'll be more for people in different countries because we want to support people around the world, but you're not going to see me putting together lovely collages of photos to stick on social media 2 a day for a whole week. It just won't have that scale to it. So consider it an ongoing thing. And that was just the launch of it.
Interesting. Just to pick up on something that you just said, Matt. How has your job changed in the last few years? Because obviously when you took over your role, you had no idea that this was going to happen. So has it changed? And if so, in what respect? And do you love it more than ever? Or are you a little bit, ugh?
Good questions. Yeah, so I still have a day job. This is my part-time gig. So my day job, I'm a PR director for biomedical science. So it's loads of COVID stuff, which is it's not actually that exciting. So this is still a part-time gig at the moment, and let's see what happens going forward. I was employed, I won't tell you the whole long, boring story, but I was employed by Bimber effectively to help them launch their first release, the first. That was my role. But we both seem to like each other, and I've been there for 18 months now. So yeah, it's moved on a bit. Initially, it was just, right, Matt, can you just tell the world about Bimber the first and what we're doing and do a launch party? And I said, yeah, I can do that. And yeah, we're now sort of 55 releases later. Jesus. Has it changed? Yes and no. The thing that I spend most of my time doing, or at least did over the last 6 weeks, is writing labels. And when I first started at Bimber, as I said, I was mainly doing all the PR and the launch and telling everyone about Bimber. And then subsequently after that, I was working with Darius on cask picks and cask assessments and interviews and, you know, doing things like this. But yeah, we've had so many releases this year. I have to write all the labels just because I'm quite quick at doing labels. So yeah, apparently I'm now a bottle label writer. And I have to say, initially I was like, this is really cool, you know, these are my words on the tubes and the bottles. And now I bloody hate it because I'll write a label and Ewelina will come back to me and she starts to say, no, you've used those words before. I want completely different words. And I said, well, how many different words can you use to describe how we're making whiskey? And she's like, that's up to you. And so it gets trickier and trickier because, you know, you do another release and it's like, yep, I need to describe this. You know, we're making it small batch, slow, whatever. It's an ex-bourbon cask. Yeah, but it's got to be different every time. So that is becoming a struggle. And I should have asked for a thesaurus for Christmas because I'm running out of words in my head. In all honesty, mate, I love it more than ever. It is, and everyone who knows me, it's an absolute passion. I would not be here 9 o'clock on December the 30th if I didn't love it. I absolutely love it. They're a wonderful team to work for. And I think we're making great whiskey. And those of you who know me outside of Bimber for the Dramble, I wouldn't work for them if I didn't think they were doing really good things. So I think I'm actually really privileged and really lucky to be here, frankly.
You can tell. Thank you.
Will the distillery exclusives continue in 2021 when the lockdown ends? Yes. So for those who don't know, beginning of last year, before we all told to go inside and have no fun, we released our first distillery exclusive. So I did my job and did some PRE things. And at 7 in the morning, they queued outside an industrial estate. And by 10 in the morning, they bought it all. And this was not the plan. We wanted people to come to the distillery, like you do. You go to a distillery and you buy whiskey. That's great. You know, you do a tour, and if you like it, you buy a bottle. And the keenness, they bought it all in 3 hours. So what we're doing now, kind of to allay that, is that yes, we are absolutely going to be doing more distillery bottlings, and we're just not going to tell anyone. And effectively, you'll just have to get to the distillery and see if there's one there. And if there's one there, you can buy it. But we're not going to be announcing it and telling people, right, it's available on this, you know, this day, because we don't want everyone cleaning us out. We want people to come to the distillery and to, you know, if they like what we're doing, to walk away with a distillery exclusive. That's part of the fun. We don't want them all bought up. So yes, and I'm not going to tell you when the next one is, but as soon as we're open, you should probably head down and see us. Let's put it that way. Yeah, those will continue. Where do I think Thompson 167 sits in quality? So I did the cask assessments with Darius for everything from 1 through to 180. And my favorite run of all of our whiskies, I don't know what they were doing in the distillery that day or that week. My favorite run is from 161 through to 175. In my opinion, all of those casks in those numbers are absolute gold. I suspect that all of the ex-bourbon barrels were from the same source. That is my guess, because nothing about the production process would change. But when I did the assessment on them, you know, some of them you're like, this is amazing. Others you're like, so-so. 161, 162, 163, 4, 5. They were all fantastic. So that firmly sits within those. I haven't tasted it for a while. I didn't get a bottle. Can't win them all, can't have them all, as I was saying earlier, and that's one of the ones I don't have. I think it's fantastic, but equally, as you've noted, Garson, Southport Whiskey Club 127 is, in my opinion, a cracker, because that has a very particular characteristic which marks it out, and it was one of the early bottles using those wooden washbacks that I showed you the video of us making, whereas a lot of the earlier numbers from sort of cask number 1 through to around 100 or so, those were in stainless steel. And so the profile, in my opinion, has just got more and more fruity. Oh, thank you guys. You're talking me up. I'll say no more. There you go. Thank you. When could we realistically see a core range? What am I going to say about this? You will see a always available product next year, but it's not what you think.
The 5-year-old.
I'm not going to say anymore. It is whiskey. It is whiskey.
Sure.
No,
vodka.
No, it is whiskey. I'm not going to say anymore. But in answer to your question, Richard, it's, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years to specifically answer what I know you're asking me. I'm answering in a different way and saying something's happening next year. And when you see it, you'll know it. But in answer to your exact question, I think 18 months, 2 years. Just to give us that, because for me, it's not just about the volume of inventory. It's about the breadth of it, right? Because notionally, we could just put out, we could just say, right, you know what, Bimber, we're not going to do any, we're just going to put out ex-bourbon, small batch, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, that's it. That's all we do. We could do that now. It's really boring. It's really, that could be a core product. It'd be so boring just to have that, do nothing else. So I think to make something, and it was what George was getting at, you know, what is Bimber style? I don't think we're there yet. So I think it's going to be 18 months for not only getting a broader pool of crayons to play with, make your drawing, but also to give us that time to play around with it ourselves and see, right, well, what happens if we mix this with that? What does that give us? Because at the moment, all of the things that we're vatting effectively are the same cask, right? We vat the same cask and then we finish. Or we vat the same cask and present it. We haven't done anything yet where we have vatted different casks. And that for me is next. At least seeing what is possible from, you know, ex-bourbon and sherry, not finished, but together, you know, at different percentages, be that, I don't know, 20% or, and it gets more and more interesting because, you know, in say 5 years time, then we'll have a range of refill casks. And then when you've got the options of first fill, second fill, ex-bourbon, first fill, second fill, ex-sherry, different states of, you know, sort of notionally second, third fill peated, third, fourth fill peated. Now you've got a lot more crayons in your box. So I think it can only get more exciting, but it'll take us a little time to gear up. You know, you have to remember we've only been bottling for a year, not long. Right, how are we doing? Do we need to move on, or shall I talk about beer for 2 minutes? Do we need to recharge the glasses? Well, I do. So
I think maybe recharge and talk about beer.
There we go. Right, we're moving on to, I guess it's tonight's big event, really. Quite exciting. Really delighted to work with our friends at Southport, not just being here, but on another festival exclusive. So this is your Winter Festival PX finish. It is different to the Bimber Club because this is from a PX quarter cask. So a PX seasoned quarter cask, which is why there is only 175 bottles. It is bottled at cask strength. And yeah, it's brand new. It was one of the very last things we did this year.
And thank you for doing it.
Oh, you're welcome, mate. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Right, beer, my second love. So we've been working, for those who don't know, we've been working with a brewery down in southeast London called Brew by Numbers. craft beer, all sorts of different styles, you know, anything from lager, stout, sours, saison, IPAs, double IPAs, they do the lot. I happened to one day before we all got shut inside be in the tap room having a beer with Danny, who runs the Dramble with me. We just sat there and a guy comes along with a baby, like a tot, like must be 4 months old, in a Brew by Numbers baby grow, sits down next to us and says, "Do you mind if we do any trade photos?" And I said, "Sure." And so the press came along and took loads of photos of this kid in the Brew by Numbers baby grow with us sitting there drinking beer. And during this, we got talking. And he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I do various things, but you know, booze-wise, I work for a distillery." And long story short, we got chatting and we mapped out a collaboration whereby we have released with Brew by Numbers 2 beers, 2 collaboration beers. So the first one was an Imperial Stout, where we provided them with our ex-bourbon whiskey. They soaked it into oak chips. They then soaked the oak chips into the stout mix. Okay, so the whiskey was effectively hard mixed into the stout. And then they added lactose, coffee, cocoa nibs, all sorts of things. It was pretty tasty. It was a sweet stout. At the same time, they put the same stout mix, unadulterated, so without what you call adjuncts, the other things, into our barrels. So we gave them 4 ex-bourbon barrels, and they put the same stout mix without the lactose, without the coffee and chocolate into the barrels. And they have just canned up the results of that. And so that is Brew by Numbers Bimber BA, barrel aged. And the reason why we're doing this is not just because I like beer, but it is a benefit. The reason why we're doing this is now we have taken those casks back and they are now Imperial Stout seasoned. So they're ready for us and we have now reused them. So they have been refilled and we will be showing off the results of that, I think, in about 4 months. That's how long I think it will take, but we'll be checking it. I'll certainly, one of the first things I do when I'm able to go back to the distillery is check to see how much flavor these casks are taking on. It's a bit of a pump. When we were mapping out the collaboration, we did at the bar literally hard mix the stout with the ex-bourbon, because that's all you can do, right? You know, someone says, "Well, what's it going to taste like? What's stout and whiskey going to taste like?" Well, I'll tell you, get the stout, get the whiskey and mix them together, because that's the best guess you're going to get. So we did that and it tasted really nice. And indeed, the beer, in my opinion, tastes quite nice. Therefore, I hope, otherwise Darius will never let me do a collaboration on beer again. It'll be the end of me. That I hope that come sort of April, May, we'll have an Imperial Stout finished Bimber. I'll come up with some sort of funky name, write the label using words out of the thesaurus, and it will be really, really exciting. Something different. So it won't be a lot. It's not going to be a massive small batch release. It's only a few casks, but yeah, fingers crossed. I've already got Brew by Numbers saying, well, the beers went well. When can we get more barrels? And so I've gone back to them and said, well, we're going to have to wait and see how the whiskey goes, because, you know, there's no point if it doesn't work.
What will you do if it's rubbish, Matt?
I'll get a big talking to. I won't be allowed to do any beer things again. We'll tip it away, mate, if it's really rubbish. Or no, actually, we probably won't. We'd keep it in the distillery, and it would be the sort of thing.
Southport Whiskey Club.
Yeah, we give it to Victor next year for yeah. No, what we'd probably do, I mean, if it's horrible, we'll tip it away. And indeed, if we have any whiskey, we've only had 1 barrel that I'm aware of where I think it had slipped in. It wasn't ex-bourbon. I think it had been used for like Underberg or some type of herbal liquor. Pretty bad. Yeah, we tried that one. If it's really good, club bottling number 2. It won't be enough bottle, mate. Won't be enough bottles. It's a shame. I wanted the collab to move along quicker because I had my eyes on it for club, but club has already got 1,400 members. And so whatever we mix up for club, it needs to be enough for the membership at the time. So it won't be the beer, I'm afraid.
And is that membership now ceased? Are you still taking new members?
We will always take new members. It will grow. And then however many members we get, we simply add more casks in the mix. But it can't be the beer. It's a shame. If it's really, really, really awful, we'll tip it. I don't think it'll be. If it's not good, we'll probably keep it in the distillery, and it'd be the sort of thing that if you come on a tour and you say, hey, yeah, you know, I've tried a few of your things. What have you got that's a bit off the beaten track? Then they'll sort of wink at you and say, well, you can try Matt's beer cask if you like. It's not very good. But I'm crossing my fingers that actually it's going to be excellent. So all of this is hearsay. It's going to be excellent. Benedictine cask. Woof, brave, 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 brave. I've got a few people in the blogosphere I know into cider who want me to work with them and do some cider casks, because whilst that is now illicit in Scotland, it is not illicit in England. Don't know. I think we'll have to wait and see how the beer cask goes. Tequila cask, I think Diageo in a year or two are going to have you sorted out for a tequila cask up the wazoo, mate. I don't think you'll need any more from Bimber. I think you're going to have more than enough to choose from when that comes to pass. SMWS, let's see. I've been talking to Kaya Valo. The thing about bottlers, a lot of people think that, you know, a bottler comes along and says, I'll have a cask, and they bottle it. Sometimes that happens, but a lot of the bigger guys, that's not what they want. What they really want is filling contract, because what they want is the long term. That's where you make the money. So, you know, a bottler will come and say, yeah, okay, we'll bottle up a cask or two, but really we'd like 8, 10, 12, 15 cask fills a year, every year. That's what they want, you know, because then they've paid for it 10 years down the line, and then the chicken comes to hatch, you know, so it's big bucks. So the bottlers work in different ways, and it's why we worked with Thompson's for our first release. A, because they have the same still as us at the moment. B, because we like them and they do a good job. And C, because they're just not at a scale where they're looking for a filling contract, which we're struggling with. Will it happen? I hope so. As a few of you have already attended to, I am an SMWS member, and I really do miss writing about the outturns each month. Hope to get back there soon. But I hope we can make it work. But yeah, not at the moment. Discussions are ongoing. So what I will say is you will certainly see some more independent bottlings of Bimber next year. You won't see loads of them. We just don't have enough casks ourselves. You know, you're not going to see 20, 30 Bimbers a year independently bottled. It's not happening at the moment. So keep an eye out. No deals have been done yet. But yeah, there's certainly something there to broaden our reach in terms of the independent bottlers.
But will you see another 30 releases, 10 abroad and 20 in the UK?
No. As I said, the only reason why there was so many all at once was because COVID had just completely compressed our schedule. And we'd already committed to all the labels, all the stuff we needed to make those bottles. So the team just said, right, well, we're doing it anyway. And then they regretted it when they could barely move around the distillery for all the glass and boxes. Hilarious. I'm amazed we got through it. It's quite the achievement. Are we going to do it again? I hope not. It's a bit much, really. We'd like you guys to come and visit and tour. And frankly, it's actually sort of almost poetic that we were closed to visitors, because no one would have been able to visit. There was so many bottlings and things going on at once. I cannot imagine what would have happened if, you know, we're doing tours and trying to bottle 30 releases over 6 weeks. It just wouldn't have worked at all, would have been carnage. So no, you're not going to see that. You are going to see us doing some things for, you know, independent bottlers on a smaller scale, and yeah, for international retail, Europe and wider, but not at a similar. You're not going to see another 20 country releases next year. It won't be that many. You're going to see some new things next year. One of those new things we'll come on to talk about in a minute, which is Port Cask 47. What are we thinking of the Southport Whiskey Festival?
What are we thinking of the Southport Whiskey Festival? The release.
The bottling. No, the release. The release. I mean, you can tell me about the whole thing at another day. I was more talking about the whiskey.
Well, both are superb.
Good answer. Top marks.
Yeah, we're quite pleased with this one. We got 2 samples and we had to be, we got the kind of the committee together in a very safe and socially distanced manner, and I had them blind taste the two samples and choose which one they preferred. It would actually the jury was split. Some people liked the one that we didn't pick, and but I think more we were much more in favour of the one we took, which is I don't know if you can see these samples. There's a little bit left. The eye would probably pick the one on the left, the darker one, particularly as it's XBX. But actually, the one we chose was the one on the right, because both the nose and the flavour of it were probably a little bit more subtle and a little bit gentler than the first one. There is a rumor that we sent the one that we rejected to the Southport Whiskey Club, but that's actually not true. I have a bottle of George very kindly sent me a bottle of the Soho bottling here, so we've actually just gone into tier 3 or 5 or 6, but the pubs have just shut tonight, which is a bit of a blow. But when they reopen, this will be going on the bar at Remedy in Southport, and we'll give George some feedback as to whether his bottling is quite as good as ours.
But I'll tell you what, pick a random person, like maybe Richard McKay. I know I can trust you, or Nigel, I know I can trust you. You can taste my one next to Victor's 2 samples that he's got left there, and you know that he's full of rubbish.
We will do that, George. We will do that. We might actually
fighting talk.
Might wait until you get back. You come up to Southport and we'll do that. And,
deal.
We shall put you in your place.
God, that's the sort of hype money can't buy. They're having a whiskey off. Amazing.
But
John Parrish, you keep out of this.
Not saying a word.
And Tom Shipley, I can see you there as well. Don't think you're.
Hey, this is excellent. I'm only going to stir this pot as much as possible.
I know you've got a bottle of both. These guys will be tasting them next to each other, going, George Williams.
So yeah, that's something to look forward to as we get the pubs open around here, because that'll be going on the bar at Remedy for folk to have a go at. George, I think you've got one of ours, so please share that out amongst the members and so on.
Yeah, we've got bottle 111, I think, going into whiskeyauctioneer.com. No, I'm joking. No, it's going on to the next time I open. It'll be on the bar on the first day.
Fantastic. Well, all the bottles that we got went to members of the Southport Whiskey Club, but I thought it was really important that we enjoy the whiskey as a club, and we this one's an interesting one actually. We put everybody's name on the back, so it kind of says, Merry Christmas, good health, etc., etc. And this one says Tom, and the reason this one's open is because it was supposed to be Thomas, and I spelt it wrong. So
good work.
This one got opened.
It's a good excuse, Victor.
Yeah. So there hasn't been any that's been publicly available, but just for absolute transparency, because we did the release in the summer, and as Matt has said, we made about 100 of them public, and a lot of them just got put onto auctions, which,
well, didn't you
not too many.
Well, yeah, okay.
Victor, didn't you have one of the new ones? Somebody put the address as an auction house.
That wasn't for a Bimber. It was for some other cool bottles that we do. We do lots of pretty decent bottles, not just Bimber. And so yeah, they did. So we don't send bottles straight to auction house. But actually, so we haven't made any of these ones public. They've all gone to members, except for 2. And we've put one on Scotch Whisky Auctions, and the next one, not this one, and another one's gone on to, I think it's Just Whisky Auctions, but they are marked on the back that they are auction bottles. So if the public do want one, they can decide the price. That's what we've done with them.
Fair play to you. Well done.
And then there's probably about another dozen which we've held back, which we will use for our own tastings. If we do a future festival, we'll certainly be cracking them open. You know, we do various, you know, we did a raffle before, and we raffled one this summer, one's off. So we'll use them as a club over the next 2 or 3 years, and some will go on to the bar at Remedy, and some of the other pubs in Southport. They'll have them behind the bar for anybody to go up and drink, really.
Do you know, like, whenever I'm on these chats with you for these festivals, I'm always keen to state how incredible what you do for whiskey up in the north of England is. But it's not just these tastings, it's also those bottlings. You make the contacts, you get hold of them, you get the tastings together, you get those casks together, you get them bottled, and you make sure that you release them fairly, and it's great to see, mate.
Yeah, thank you. But then there's a great bunch of people in the club that help me do it. It's, you know, I might be the front face and the one that wears the hat, but you know, I could sit and reel off a dozen people around about me that live around Southport that dig in various ways and in order to make the club work, and otherwise it wouldn't work, and we wouldn't be able to do some of the things that we do. And
yeah, well, I can assure you, Tom Shipley wouldn't come and help me do bottling in the Soho Whiskey Club.
Tom Shipley is a dab hand with a tape gun and making up boxes. I've seen him work for
not just a tape gun, mate.
but yeah, there you go.
Slowly going off the rails.
Okay, we've got one more dram. Have we, Matt? What have we got? Export.
We do. Right.
Tell us all about it.
Reach into my pile. So, export cask number 47 at 58.8. Last festival, I ended with a port cask, and we're doing the same again here. The difference being in that now we are happy enough to say you are going to get some port, including this port cask, coming up early next year. We're going to give it one little more winter, and then you will see. So you're possibly the last, having been the first people to try the US release, you're sort of going to be the last people to try this port cask, because the next thing that's going to happen to it is it's going to be bottled. I'm not going to try and share my screen because it didn't go so well earlier. I don't know, she's Netflixing or some other shit like that upstairs. But what I will say is that there will be some port single casks. We've said that all along. And without showing you the label concept, if you're aware of our other single casks in the colors, that you've got the sort of brown for ex-bourbon, the red for sherry, no surprise for anyone, green for virgin. Your port cask is blue, which will look really nice next to the others. So port single cask coming along. Given the number, cask must be 7, little age behind it. Exactly, Richard. So oddly, of all of the sort of original selection of casks that we've got, the port casks will be the oldest when we release them. So this potentially might be nearing 5 years old when we release it. Only because, as I explained to those who were there last year, we found that the maturation had effectively stopped due to a buildup of residue, sort of port residue inside the cask. We stripped them all down. My man Luke cleaned them all out. Poor bloke, not a fun job. We then recast it, and it is now nearly a year on from that, and boy, have they come along. Yeah, so one of the last people to try this before we actually bottle it. It's going to have a little bit of a winter, and then we're going to take one little look, and then effectively what we do is when we're getting to a point where we think we're going to be releasing something or we're working on it, it moves into the distillery. We're sort of up to, I guess we must be up to sort of 850 casks now, something around that. They are not all at the North Acton site. There's a bonded warehouse where most of them are. So the things that are in the distillery are either things that we're going to be working on shortly or things that we're working on now. So in that sense, the port casks are coming back into the distillery. A few there already. We're going to give them a little winter up in the rafters, and then you will see these bottled next year. We have both types of port. We have ruby and tawny port. This one is a ruby port. Without getting into geekery, ruby port is younger than tawny port, without really going OTT on a port chat. But there you go. So this is a ruby port cask. That's so much better.
You said you got 850 casks, Matt.
Yeah.
And you've got 2 tiny stills, and you sold release in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
How long can you stay in a tiny little West Acton MOT garage?
7 minutes. It's a good question. I was going to show you it, but I don't want to crash out again. I have a photo of the still, the new still that we have being built. It'll take quite a while. We've basically got the sort of top of the boil bubble, and that's all done. It'll be quite a few months to get this bad boy finished. It is twice the size, so 2,000 litres.
Is that removing either of the 2 original stills?
Correct.
So
It will replace, it is a...
replacing 2 stills with 1 larger still?
No. Replacing the 1,000 litre wash still with a 2,000 litre wash still. Because we replaced the 600 litre spirit still with a 1,000 litre duplicate of the spirit still. So effectively, at the moment, we cannot fill a barrel off one charge. You know, it takes several distillations to fill a barrel. So we're hopeful that by getting a 2,000 litre charge initially into the wash still, that we will increase capacity somewhat. But you're on the money there. There is only so much time that we can spend in our current premises.
So you guys, have you taken the investment, or obviously you're doing very well at the moment, so you've taken the finances in order to put this new still in, but with forward thinking that actually you're going to move premises in, and will you move that still with you? Because surely it's not going to be that long.
That's a good question, and I can't tell you the answer to that because there are options, right? I'll come back to your question in a minute, Owen. There are options in that, you know, we can find another lot where we are now, down the road, something bigger, stay exactly where we are in the beauty of the North Acton industrial estate.
It'll have to be a lot bigger.
It would have to be bigger. And so that's option 1. But option 1 has part A and part B. Part A is simply move to a bigger unit. Option B is buy a bigger unit and continue distilling both, right? So, you know, just effectively, even if we get more site, that doesn't mean we have to completely rip down what we've got, replumb it all in and try to set it all back up in the same way, you know? And as someone said, having a carpenter nearby is kind of a useful thing when you're getting casks delivered and things that need to be made. So I wouldn't be surprised. Now, as I say, all bets are off at the moment. We are discussing, we're looking what's available. We don't make anywhere near as much money as people think we do once all the costs and the tax have been paid. It really is not as much money as you think it is.
As far as you know, this new still being put in is not a bridge to a next distillery.
No, I will say absolutely hand on heart that Bimber will not be having. There won't be another English whiskey distillery. There might be Bimber Site B, or Bimber Site B might be Bimber Site A. You see, there's options. I personally think that
English brewer.
Exactly, the original. I personally think it makes a lot of sense having, and it's just my view, so Bimber hat off, Dramble hat on, having a Site B in a location that people might walk by you know, rather than next to a graveyard and industrial estate, that has some distilling activities going on, that has a much bigger bar, that does bar-y type things and tours and master classes, whatever those might be, whilst maintaining the Sunbeam site and putting that entirely down for bulk production. I think that has value as a strategy. Equally, you could just put all your eggs in one basket and move, or you could go for another site in Northampton. There's all sorts of ways to, you know, cut the fish, and getting somewhere else doesn't mean getting somewhere different. As you say, Richard, site B could be the difference between making two different things. Again, and I'll speak quite openly about this because nothing has been decided, nothing. So all of these options, we are, you know, it's all on the table. We're throwing them all out there. I'm not the money guy, so I can make stupid suggestions about bouncy castles. Some of them are quite sensible for me. Keeping where we are now for production, having another site for, I don't want to say whiskey tourism, because it's, I don't know, it's not necessarily whiskey tourism, but somewhere that has more footfall. People just walking by and going, wow, what's Bimber? Which no one does ever where we are now, barring one person, and that was weird. I think that's an interesting option, but we won't. You will not see us build another separate distillery under a different name in England. One English distillery is enough for us. Whether it ends up with two sites, or one site in a bar, or a split, I don't know. But yeah, something's coming. It won't be coming anytime in the sort of next 6 months, I don't think, because we're putting in a 2,000 litre still. How will it change the profile? Darius has designed it himself, and he has designed it to be in keeping with the reflux and the distillation regime that he wants. So he assures me it won't be any different. I personally think it'll be a little different because every still is different. Equally, you know, when we move from the 600 litre spirit still to the 1,000 litre spirit still, that's different. It's all slightly different. But the fact that it's the same guy designing it to his own specification, it gives me some confidence that we'll still be doing exactly the same thing. Fundamentally, it's no different. It's direct fired, it's customized, it's massive reflux, and it's slow distillation. And the shape is broadly similar. We'll have to see. That, I mean, even that's going to be months to finish. So I don't think you're going to see suddenly Bimber upping sticks anytime soon, but you're on the money in suggesting that it is on the cards because you guys keep turning up to probably not hear from me, probably just drink the whiskey, and I don't blame you.
What's everyone's favourite whiskies from tonight? Doug, Darren Wells, Paul, James. Should we go through another 1, 2, 3, 4? How many did you guys taste?
They've drunk them all, surely.
Well, yeah, but I didn't have any of them. I was on, what am I on? Southport Whiskey Festival, bottle number 94, and Ex-Bourbon cask. I don't get party. I don't get party to the actual whiskies, man.
Oh, George, did you know buy a ticket for the raffle?
No, but I have to say I didn't know that it was for charity. So what I will do is send you the money.
Yeah, Matt, not all of us actually won the samples for tonight, so we're just sort of hanging on listening to you, mate.
That's it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Jesus, wow.
So listen, folks, I'm kind of sorry to spoil the party, but we're kind of getting near time where if we go much further, I will be getting divorced. I know that. I mean, we've been at this now for 3 days, and it's been absolutely fabulous fun to meet everybody, talk to everybody, get loads of whiskey companies in, get people like Matt who know all about it on to talk to us. But it's got to come to a close because the doorbell went about 5 minutes ago, and it's my takeaway tea.
Well, yeah, because I was thinking, right, I mean, obviously, you've got to thank Matt for being brilliant tonight and everybody for coming along, and Victor, what an incredible job you've done, and you've had such help with John and from John and Nigel, and of course, my boy Tom Shipley down there. But really, it's not Victor. it's Susanna who we need to help.
It is, it is. It is.
We've got to have a massive round of applause for Susanna for letting this go on.
And having the patience to
With
put
the
up with
patience.
the last 3 months of having a half absent husband as he puts it together. So there you go.
You
But
need to get her in the
Matt-
room, Victor, along with your takeaway tea. Come on. She can then take the round of applause.
No chance. No chance. I'm going to get a crook down my neck and we go off like that. So listen, thank you for everybody who's taken part over the last 3 days. Thanks, Matt, for tonight.
You're most
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you,
Thank you for
Love-
inviting
love
me,
having-
guys. Pleasure.
Love having Bimber on. The bottle's fantastic. We're going to have lots of fun with this over the next couple of years. And you know, everybody that's bought raffle tickets, everybody's bought bottles, all the people that put tasting packs together, etc., etc. Even George Mitchie for coming on and giving me a wee bit of hand. He's done not too bad a job. We might do that again.
Who's that gig? Who the fuck is that giggling? So you're right. You're quite right to giggle.
So let's bring the curtain down. There's still loads of whiskey on my website. That's my last plug of the last 3 days. But go and fill your boots with that if you've got any money left. There's also some. The next dramming session we've got is a Grand Dram 3 or 4, which is on the 7th of January. There's still a few places for that. If you fancy joining the Southport Whiskey Club Grand Dram team, we'll see you there. But otherwise,
Ladies and gents, Victor Porter, Southport Whiskey Club, and everybody who's got together for it, congratulations. Well done. Massive round of applause to all of you, and thank you.
good night.
Thanks.